So we have already done centering, like we can center text by using text align, and that's great. When that works and that's how you want to make sure you maintain that. But let me show you a couple of different things that there are sometimes when we want to center an entire element and text align won't work all the way for us. So I'm going to, let's say that we want to center this paragraph, right? So if I go into that paragraph and I use text align center, so I go up here and I make this center, it will actually center the text within the paragraph, but the paragraph itself is not centered. All right, so sometimes text align won't do everything we want it to do. So let's go ahead and how do we do that? There are 3 things you have to do when you want to center an element. And I'm going to just write these down here so you can see them. The 3 things are, it has to be a block element, it has to have an explicit width, not an inherited width, not a default. It has to have an explicit width, and it has to have the left and right margins are equal. All right, so that is how you center an element. Okay, that's centering an entire element rather than the content within an element. So this is to center an entire element. And really, that's how you do that. And the other one is just to center the content within an element. This is easy, right? Because this is text align center. So when you want to do that, that's good. But when you want to center an entire element, you have to make sure of these 3 things. Now, a paragraph is already a block element. So we're good. We're golden. We don't have to make a change on the display for that. The property for that is display, by the way. You can change that from being a block element. But it's already a block element, so we don't have to set that. It needs to have an explicit width. And by default, it's 100%, but we have actually changed the width on this paragraph. So if we go look, there we have identified the width as 4 inches. Check. So now we have width. So the last thing that we need to do is make sure the left and right margins are equal. So left and right margins are equal. So that's the one thing I have left to do. Well, notice that the left and right margins vary. I mean, I could set it and it would center it in a certain place, but notice how it's really hard to guess what those widths are because it varies. So the easiest way, a really simple way to do this is to set left and right to auto. So I can go up here and I can do, right now I have margin, remember top, and so this is right, and this is left. So I'm just going to set those to auto, which is a value that is allowed for margins. And now I have just centered that paragraph. And notice how it stays centered as the page grows and shrinks. So that's pretty cool. Notice what's happening down here as I grow and shrink that page. So I can, all of a sudden my float no longer works when it gets small. My table is continually shrinking, right? So things are happening here as you grow and shrink those. You do have some options here. So one of the things that we can do is put a specific width on the body, and that won't allow this kind of movement with these elements. So if I go up to the body and I say width, and I can set, I don't know, 1024 pixels, so that's pretty big. What that will do is that will define how big that is. Okay, so now watch. So it says, okay, now this is 100,024 pixels wide. Now notice that it stays that wide even as it gets smaller and smaller. So no longer, this doesn't drop down. What happens is I get a scroll bar here at the bottom. I'm not seeing all of it, and I have to use the scroll to see all of it. Now, notice that when I make this bigger, I might be able to see this better if I make this smaller. So let me make this 720. Not 1720, 720. And I refresh that. Okay, now it's smaller. Now you can see it stays without movement. I have more control over what size it is. Okay, because things just kind of stay in place a little bit better. But also notice that it's on the left. Okay, so the width is all on the left. Well, you can center the whole body just the way that we did that paragraph. And remember what things we had to have. It had to be a block element. Body is already a block element. It has to have an explicit width. We just added that, right? On the body, we just added explicit width. So the only thing we have left is to make the left and right margins the same. So I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to do this really easy here. I'm just going to set not margin bottom. That's not what I wanted. Just margin to auto. And that makes top, right, bottom, left, all auto, but that makes the left and right auto. And now I can center that, and then now it keeps everything in the center. So now it still won't allow it to get any smaller than that, right? You're going to get that scroll bar when it gets less than 720. But now when it's bigger, then it keeps the body centered. So lots of different things that you can do with that. All right, the last